All right, quick break before we get started here today. I want to tell you about something that keeps coming up with the brands that I talk to. Now, here's the reality. If you're running paid ads right now, your ad platforms are probably only seeing about 40% of your actual conversions. Think about the iOS restrictions, the ad blockers, all these privacy changes that have happened over the last few years. They've all created this massive blind spot in your data. And so you're making these ad decisions based on incomplete information. And I've watched brands kill campaigns, honestly, that were actually working. They just look like losers in the dashboard. But I've also seen people pour money into campaigns that look great. But the reality is these are just taking credit for sales that they didn't drive. And so if you're spending $500 a month or even $50,000 a month, to me, that's really expensive guessing, and that's what my sponsor on today's episode actually solves. Their company is called WeTracked, and they're at wetracked.io. It completely fixes this problem. They are the number one highest rated ad tracking solution on Shopify. They have over 7,000 brands that are using this solution to get accurate conversion data back to Meta and back to Google. And technically, it just bypasses all of the tracking restrictions so that these algorithms can start actually learning your store and what's actually working. And the setup takes 5 minutes. There's no coding required. And believe it or not, they actually have real human support 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's not a ticketing system. And literally, you can test out their solution right now for 14 days. And you can see the difference, honestly, in your data right away. So you can go to wetracked.io/e-commerce fast lane, or you can just go to the show notes. There's a special link in this episode, and you get a special 10% off for you, our amazing listeners. So, all right, let's jump back into today's conversation.
You're listening to E-commerce Fastlane, the podcast show to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company, powered by Shopify. Listen to real conversations with partners and subject matter experts as they share proven practical strategies, platforms, and the best Shopify apps to help you accelerate your business. The time is now for you to improve efficiencies, grow revenue, profit, and lifetime customer loyalty. Please welcome your host, startup founder and strategic advisor, Steve Hutt.
Well, hey there. Welcome back to E-commerce Fastlane. I am your host, Steve Hutt. Now, today was the 30th of January right now, so this is going to be launched out in February, and we're kind of getting through, I guess, the first month of 2026, and there's a lot of patterns that I'm seeing right now, and that should be quite familiar for most of you that are listening right now. Some people, from the feedback that I've gotten, is that 2025 was a little bit tough for a lot of people. Traffic certainly increased for sure, and conversions were a little bit less than maybe anticipated. Now, overall, Shopify did quite well. When I saw their earnings results, it seemed to be doing quite well, but there was a lot of brands that weren't doing it. I think net overall, Shopify is doing well, but we actually start granularly taking a look at each of the brands. You'll actually see that a lot of brands were down. I think some of the stats that I've got here before recording, like revenue and a lot of great big brands, were down 14%. And so I think there's a lot of urgency right now for direct-to-consumer brands to figure out what can we do to increase our revenue. And sometimes, yes, there's ways of, paid acquisition, and there's some all great opportunities out there. But the thing was, I really believe that one angle that you may want to think about, and it's an area that I know Shopify has been working diligently on, is trying to figure out the size of the B2B market. Obviously, retail is still the largest thing that's happening in retail right now, and just consumer spending. But there's this growing online part of it. So B2B is still great. You have to still supply the retailers, and you have to supply the online retailers. Sometimes they're both. And that's why I have my guest on today. Meghann is from a company that's called RepSpark. They're at repspark.com. She's been in this industry quite a while. She has a great story, being involved in the fashion industry for quite a few years, and kind of worked her way through. Has this incredible platform. That's why I have her on today, because I want to talk about this platform and just the power and potential growth in B2B. So hi, Meghann. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me, Steve.
Oh, my pleasure. So let's talk a little bit about the background story before we kind of dig into the wholesale strategies. I think that's important, is that, you started RepSpark, but just kind of before that, can you give us like a little bit of a background story about like what were the original origin of you and your family? And then what was the problem that you were attempting to solve and have now solved with RepSpark?
Yeah, so my dad had owned a company that had 6 or 7 brands underneath it. And so what he would do is he would come in when those very creative people who usually start a brand because they love to do some passion, surfing, skiing, playing volleyball, golfing, and he would come in and provide the operational backbone. And so at one point in time, I think he had 6 or 7 brands, and I just loved being over there. It was so fun. I was in the warehouse, picking things that I helped. I don't know. I helped wherever I could. I think I was going to trade shows when I was like 5 years old. So just always been around it and just kind of watched different brands, the different brands, how they manage their business. And it's still true today. A lot of these brands will use independent sales reps to service their wholesale retailers, so to service their brick and mortar stores. And what happened was a lot of times these sales reps go out, they have a catalog or they have a line that they're showing, and the process between showing that line, a pre-book line, and actually receiving that order back at the brand and then fulfilling the order, shipping the order out to a retailer, and then also being able to track that package. Where is it? When did it arrive? It's just very convoluted. And apparel, footwear, accessories, hard goods, they're very convoluted in and of itself. You have size scales, you have colors, you have carryover product, you have carryover product that might change price season over season. You have sizes and colors, and it's just a lot. And so imagine the amount of errors a sales rep is going to bring back as they, send in a fax of their order. And so we created an online platform at that point in time. It was a green screen, nothing what it is now, but the reps could at least go in, they could see the proper inventory, they could see the style name and the style color, they could fill in their quantities and place an order. And then they could run some rudimentary reporting. And that's what it was. And so what happened was the reps that were using it, sales reps, came back and said, "This is amazing. Can I use it for, the 5 other brands that I rep for?" And so my dad said, "Meghann, I think we got something here. I love the manufacturing side. I love the operational side of what I'm doing. You totally understand this business. Do you want to run with the tech side?" And being kind of young and dumb at that point in time, I said, "Yes, I'd love to run with the tech side. That seems like a really great idea." And here we are 18 years later with RepSpark. And it's just kind of grown and morphed over time. We've always stayed true to our mission to be the most impactful partners that we could be to brands and retailers looking to grow and scale in wholesale. And that's what we've been doing, and we're doing that still today.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that story. What's interesting, though, doing my research, I found out that it seems like the overall, I guess, the market opportunity out there is, I think they said like $5.9 trillion in kind of physical retail versus this $1.3 trillion that's done online. So the market size is significantly bigger. And you think about, those DTC brands maybe that are listening now, they may have built a very successful direct-to-consumer business, but how do you believe they should be thinking about maybe like the wholesale today? Because what do you believe is changing? Because I think it just seems interesting to me that there's all this great potential and to be more profitable, but so a lot of people are just not doing it. There's this great market size. For some reason, people just haven't figured out how to do it correctly. They just want to kind of do direct themselves, but they know the narrative that there's a larger opportunity out there. What do you say to these people?
It's so funny because if you think about when we started RepSpark 18 years ago, there wasn't even e-commerce. Like direct to consumer didn't even exist, right? So you had, I know we're all shaking our heads right now, but you had to get in a car, on a bike, and go down to a store and make sure they had the product, and maybe they had it or maybe they didn't, and you couldn't price check, all these places. So it was first and foremost. And then, the pendulum started swinging to direct to consumer. Then you saw COVID. Everybody was, brick and mortar's gone, retail's gone. They're never going to have a store again. And now you're really seeing that pendulum swing back to wholesale. Retail establishments are super important. Consumers really want to come in and shop. They want to see, they want the experience. And it's really important for wholesale or direct to consumer to move into wholesale to also legitimize their business. So, make sure that you are true, make sure that you are a company that's not just t-shirts, but you have a brand story and you have a following and you have retail locations. I think it's a miss to go into too many retail locations, especially off the bat, but find those ones that really, resonate with your DNA. And those people can find you that are going into that store maybe for some other reason.
Right. So, like, what about timing then? I think that's kind of an important question that I think about, like, because there's, some brands are, is it a certain like revenue milestone or like operational maturity, product market fit? Like, I always wonder when you believe or you see the most successful brands that said, hey, you've got product market fit direct to consumer. What does it look like, or when is the right time to figure out that maybe a B2B opportunity is in their cards?
We deal with that all the time, and I think it's a little different. So we have a whole matrix on, is this brand ready for RepSpark?
Okay.
Which they
Okay.
may not actually be ready for RepSpark, but they still may be ready for wholesale. So it's interesting because we look at, is the owner or the founder, have they done this before? So a lot of direct to consumer, comes from somebody who has been in the wholesale brand space before. So they know what they're doing, they know what they're looking for. I'm not sure that it's actually a revenue size, but it's more of a readiness with your processes in place and understanding of what wholesale is. I mean, we talk to so many direct to consumer only brands, and you tell them that they have to have a wholesale and a retail price, or you tell them that people aren't really checking out with a credit card. They're actually going to pay an invoice on terms. So there's just it's I think it's actually more of an education and understanding of what it's gonna take more than actually a revenue size. Obviously, with larger revenues, you can invest probably in a sales force, a sales manager. It's just different. You have boots on the ground. Even with a platform like RepSpark that is, facilitates that B2B buying, you still have to have a really good understanding of what wholesale is because there's a lot of differences. It's very different.
Oh, 100%. And you think about it, a lot of brands are used to kind of like one-on-one shipping to their one consumer with their one product. But imagine having to deal with like pallets or case packs and minimum order quantities and all these different things. Even and the terms you just mentioned too, net 30, net 60, things like that. So, like, can you walk us through like that infrastructure gap? Because clearly there is an infrastructure gap for people, or just they don't really understand what systems or processes that a brand may need to think about. And some of it is managed by RepSpark for sure, and facilitating these sort of things. But talk a little bit about maybe the mindset and kind of the operational differences between you being successful direct to consumer retailer, but then all of a sudden being a wholesaler now also.
I think it's one of the most important thing is inventory and understanding inventory allocation because like you just said, Steve, you're not selling one to one and oh well, when it's out, it's out. You're selling you're selling a $10,000 order that has 50 styles and 50 different colorways and 100 different sizes and just the complexity of that matrix. And then you're having orders coming in from different places now. You probably have some direct to consumer component. You're going to have a wholesale component. You may have a big box component where they're sending that in via EDI. And then some of the retailers actually have their own online component. And so just that cohesion of having a really nice inventory view and then being able to handle the inventory allocation. So an order comes in, who gets it? Who gets that inventory that might be coming in on that day because it's not one-to-one. And I think the other thing that's really important is in wholesale, you're actually selling, 3 to 4 to 5 months in advance. So those wholesalers are usually going to pre-book. They're going to look at your line. Like we were just at all the trade shows that happen in January, whether direct to consumer, wholesale, all the trade shows. Well, they're selling, summer, fall of 26 right now. And it's very different, and the
Yeah, it is.
masses won't see that until August or September. And so you really have to understand the cadence of inventory. So, having some sort of ERP system is important. You can probably get away with just housing all that data in Shopify for a little while. We do work with a lot of direct to consumer brands that are moving into wholesale, and they actually use Shopify as almost their back end system. But then we sit on top of Shopify and present that B2B space. You probably need like a warehouse management system at that point. You're not just picking one. The ERP system will help with your allocation. You're going to need a wholesale e-commerce platform that gives, the retailers a sense of trust and transparency. And okay, they're going to be able to ship what they say they're going to ship when they think they're going to ship it. And then there's a whole brand of others. You start getting into PLM, like a product cycle management system. There's a lot of different, technology that goes into really starting to grow and scale in wholesale.
It's amazing. So let's talk about the RepSpark platform itself, because I mean, I've gone through a lot of it, like just kind of pre-recording right now. It's pretty in depth. There's a lot of technology in the back office that's making all of this work. So walk us through. Let's say a brand has product market fit and they want to get involved with wholesale in general, and they feel that they have the capacity. Maybe they're with a 3PL right now. Maybe they're using ShipBob or whatever, Ship Hero. They've got their product in there, and they're ready, or at least the 3PL is ready for the pallets and the larger quantity sizes. And maybe there's an opportunity by using Shopify's kind of B2B initiative, or even a third party solution, so you can actually have proper pricing and quantity discounts and terms and things like that. What does RepSpark do as a platform if a brand chooses to want to get involved with you?
Well, we can start. So let's start kind of outside of RepSpark. There's a whole aspect that's a community. So we provide kind of a one-sided marketplace where new brands can put tile, can put marketing, can put catalogs in front of buyers. Those buyers can then request access to the brand, and essentially it comes in as a new lead. So it's a lead gen tool. That's not really what RepSpark is. It's a very, very small part of it. But for newer brands, they will have that opportunity to be in front of, that big quantity of buyers that are actually a lot of times looking for a new brand. So the retail location will request access, and then the brand will go through their process of approving a buyer, which is also a whole process, right? How do you approve a buyer? You have to get all their forms. Do you have a process for approving a buyer? When a buyer asks for access, do you have a process to approve them? Reach out, maybe send them a catalog or a digital catalog or a line sheet. So there's that piece as well. And then with RepSpark, you're going to have visibility into inventory, pricing, product. Again, you can place multi-day orders. So you can, from one screen, you can place an order for multiple ship to locations, which is one parent store with, 5, 6, 7 stores underneath. The buyers can come in and they can place their own orders as well, which is great. It's a very direct-to-consumer type interface, but that handles that complexity of what we talked about: the style, size, color, multi-date order, multi-ship to order, promotions, all of that. It's different. Those promotions are different too than, hey, we're having a 10% off sale or having, free shipping. It may be different per retail location, what type of promotion you're giving, and also what type of product that you're giving to that location. Because a lot of times retailers might be down the street and a brand's going to ship them different things. And so their price list, product list, all those types of things.
Right. Well, what about, I'm just thinking out loud here, but like when you think about a brand that is worried about maybe even cannibalizing themselves a bit, hey, if I sell, wholesale to someone through RepSpark or even directly, are they hurting their direct to consumer higher margin sales, or does it overall, is this just part of a multi-channel experience that's reasonably necessary for most brands?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's all about the omni-channel experience. So you want to make sure that when that buyer is ready to buy, wherever they are, that you have product there, whether that be online, again, whether that be in some department store or whether that be in a small mom and pop retailer. So you just want to make it as easy for someone to buy your product as possible. I've never heard of all my years, a brand being cannibalized, their profit margins being cannibalized by moving into wholesale.
I see. Okay, so let's talk about the connection now. So you said that in some cases, because most people listening right now are a Shopify-powered business of some capacity, and some will have retail using the POS system, and they're using a lot of the products and services that Shopify has kind of pre-baked in. Maybe they have a few apps and marketing platforms that are connected. So just walk us through what happens if a brand chooses to use RepSpark. So you're going to load your product. Like, do you import from Shopify as part of an onboarding and an ingestion period? And then are you able to, from within RepSpark, make, like, I guess, quantity and pricing and these, I guess there's a lot of kind of back office recommendations. I just want to understand the workflow of what would happen from point A. I'm doing well online right now. Now I'm getting involved with RepSpark. What does that workflow look like?
Steve, it is as easy as a push of a button.
Oh, okay.
So
That's good.
yeah.
I
So
like
we
that.
are completely integrated with Shopify. You reach out, you push a button, the products, customers. We do
Every
have
reports.
everything imports if you have it in Shopify. Now, a lot of brands won't have, retail or wholesale customers in Shopify because they're not using it for that. So there's other ways that you can populate the system with your customer list, your shipping, your terms, just typically what goes with a wholesale customer. But if you have that in Shopify, then it comes right over. And then you have an interface that's really built for a wholesale buyer and a wholesale sales rep. And then those orders go back in through Shopify. If you go back into Shopify. Now, if you have an ERP system, so if Shopify is hooked into an ERP system, then we would also hook into the ERP system. We wouldn't hook into Shopify at that point in time. So it really depends on the maturity of the brand. Again, if they have that ERP system, then Shopify will, sit on one side of the ERP system, RepSpark sits on the other side, and the orders are flowing that way.
I see. So let's talk a bit about some metrics. It always comes down to revenue for a lot of people. And I guess there's a strategy around how you can be successful in wholesale, which is maybe a whole separate podcast. But like from your perspective, like are there any certain types of metrics that I just are important to understand and track because I'm sure there's financial people and brands that are listening now and saying, okay, yes, we want more revenue, but our margin is lower. Do we talk about like just the total net profit? Or is there a halo effect that could certainly happen? As you said, this omni-channel, being everywhere, being wholesale and retail and online, I guess there's this overall benefit. But I guess there's certain types of KPIs that people are used to tracking. Are there any new KPIs they may want to think about that are important from a wholesale and how RepSpark kind of, runs their business?
Yeah, so I think there's some ones that are very specific to wholesale. I mean, one, revenue and in your growth health. Is wholesale actually working? Are we actually getting revenue from it? Are we growing? So, the core metrics there are going to be revenue by account or revenue by retailer, the revenue by channel. So looking at your direct to consumer versus your wholesale versus a marketplace versus EDI, your order frequency per account. So how many times are they placing a reorder? You have to think that, wholesale, these are brick and mortar locations that are finite. They are, they're maybe not a square, but imagine a square box and they only have so much floor space. So even if you get into that shop, are they reordering? Are they replacing? What is the sell-through looking like? Your average order value, are they growing within that space? So again, it's finite and it's usually filled. So to get into wholesale, you may have to get a smaller floor space, but over time, are you growing that floor space? Are they increasing their orders? Are they ordering more often? And then looking at season over season growth. So again, you have to think of it as, there's a finite space that has, certain number of brands in it. So once you get in there, are they ordering more frequently? Is it growing? Are you growing your whole space? So that's like, is wholesale actually working? Then there's the metrics of margin and profitability, right? So first, like, let's get it working. They're ordering, we're growing. And then you start looking at margin and profitability. So are we making money or are we just shipping units now to some other place that's not direct to consumer? So you're going to look at your gross margin by channel. And, a lot of times with wholesale, I mean, people always say, oh, the margins aren't as good, but imagine you're shipping a $5, $10, $20,000 order. It's just different.
Net profit. Yeah.
Your net margin by account. So looking at that on the account base, your cost to serve. So I think it's really interesting. Everybody always looks at their marketing spend with direct to consumer. I mean, that's like the number one thing. And I always ask brands, what type of marketing do you do for wholesale? And they always say, I go to a trade show and I'm like, but how much does that cost? Like, you're getting a potential $2,000, $5,000 order, which that could be many, many, many direct to consumer orders. What are you actually, like, what does that cost? Like, what is your average cost to serve? So I think it's something that when brands are newer into wholesale, they're just not looking at that. And then how many chargebacks or, discounts do you have to give the retailers? So, those are really big, important pieces. And, not all big accounts are going to be good accounts. So you have to really keep your eye on that piece. And then your account health and retention. So we kind of started with that. Like, is it working? Are they growing? But then you have this opportunity now. You've clawed your way into that retail location. Are they retaining? Are they ordering season over season? Is it growing? What's the reorder rate? Time between orders. And that also tells you, hey, this is a good retail location because people are coming in and they're buying the product and now you have to refill it. So really looking at those types of metrics are going to be really important in wholesale, which I don't think you really look at any of those. I mean, maybe your like I said, your marketing budget or your marketing cost, but the rest are very wholesale specific.
Yeah, it's amazing the whole granularity thing, and then the profitability by order net. Even though the gross margin, is actually lower physically because they have to make their profit to retail the product. But if the net profit is there, and overall you can see that. I think I wrote that down as a granularity. I think it's really important. What about trade shows? Because you did make a comment that you just came back from the January kind of trade show. Because I think there's a lot of brands that are doing as part of their experiential part of their business. They're doing pop-ups as a starting thing. They're using Shopify POS. What happens with RepSpark? Is there any opportunity from within your platform to, I don't know, landing pages or like portals or whatever? I don't even know what you have available. I know that when I think of pop-ups, you have to do your own marketing, and then Shopify will give you the hardware and the technology to be able to take in-person transactions, but it's up to you to kind of run it all. What does RepSpark think about these trade shows and pop-up opportunities?
I mean, for us, it's great. Trade shows is great. RepSpark can facilitate that. We provide the opportunity to build a digital catalog, to build a digital line sheet that can be, used in a campaign for new retailers or new brick and mortar stores. At the trade show, a lot of those buyers are actually buying. It depends on what show. So the January trade show circus is going to be, I call it the circus because it's all of them all at the same time. But you're going to have the SHOT Show. You're going to have the PGA Show, which is all of golf, racket, resort wear. There's the Racket Show, which is tennis, pickleball. There's one here in SoCal, which leans more towards like resort and wellness. So it's like yoga, resort. Then you have Surf Expo, which is also in Orlando. That's going to be your action sports. And then you have outdoor retailer, which comes a little later. And then you have all your fashion is usually like March. I can't remember, end of February or March. And that's where it's called the Magic Show, which I think is really funny. And then you have platform, and those are in Vegas. So those are huge opportunities. I mean, those are opportunities for you to show your line and be in front of buyers and have your reps out, your sales teams out and about meeting new people. So those are huge. At one point, everybody thought those were going away too for wholesale buying.
Yeah.
And they're back. They're all back.
Yeah. They're back. So, like, those that are listening right now, do you have a sweet spot? I know we kind of dabbled on a bit at the beginning of the show, but is there a sweet spot of customer that you believe, I guess, is ready for wholesale, and then they are a great candidate? Because clearly you've had brands that maybe have come on board to RepSpark, and maybe they just haven't been successful because they just weren't quite ready for it. But then there's lots of brands that have been successful, and there's got to be some key things that you've seen, because then I'd like maybe that wisdom to be passed down to those that are listening right now or watching, so they can figure out, well, yeah, I'm in that same situation right now. And yes, I want to increase my revenue and profit. Is RepSpark for me? And what would that look like? I'm sure you have some ideas around that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is a size component. I mean, if you're doing less than probably 3 million in direct to consumer, you may just not have that infrastructure to hire the right people. Usually we look at brands that have at least one sales, like a sales manager, but if you have 1 to 3 sales reps and have identified a territory for them, that will make you successful. That shows that you understand, I like to say direct to consumer is about storytelling and wholesale is about relationship building. So it takes time. Like it takes a little time. And I think for the direct to consumer brands to understand that, even if you have an amazing product and there's actually, 500 retail locations that want it, their store just might be full. Like they've just may not be able to stock your brand right now. And they may come back. And so you have to have a sales team that's going to be, and some people outsource their sales teams. I mean, it doesn't need to be internal, but you have to have a group or a rep group that is ready, has those relationships, and ready to start selling your product, walking into these retail locations and, essentially convincing these buyers to try it, which is different. It's not just pure marketing. So having some sort of go-to-market strategy for wholesale, which, what locations, how many are you targeting? Is it 100 off the bat? Is it 500? And then do you have a sales team to support that? And I'm not saying you have to have, 500 reps, but do you have one
No, fair
group
enough.
whose main job is to cultivate these relationships, continuing to send, line sheets and catalogs? Again, they may see you at the trade show. They're seeing 50 other brands and they may seem really excited, but you have to have somebody there to follow up. So having that in place
Yeah.
and then having kind of your pricing strategy in place. So what does that look like? Again, most wholesalers are going to want terms, especially if you're a first time brand in that shop. They're going to want like a net 30. So just making sure that you have the financial infrastructure to carry that type of terms. And then you have the inventory. So I think those are probably kind of the four main pieces that we look at when we're looking at different brands. And we do have brands cycle through. They'll come through and it'll just be too early. And then they'll drop out. And a year and a half later, they will come back and be like, we're ready now. And so we're trying to also help them too to say, you may be actually ready for wholesale. You may not be ready for RepSpark yet. You may just be a little too small. But once you kind of hit some of these thresholds, you're ready to go and we're ready to support you.
And it seems to, and you make a good point. I made a note here that, I guess the brand needs to have a lot of traction first. You're using the $3 million as kind of a starting point. My notes here are marketplaces. Are you in all the marketplaces? Is Amazon and other marketplaces as part of your strategy? If you're not there, you need to be there. Just even if it's a small selection of your SKUs, it's part of that touch point again. Are you on TikTok shops? You say, oh, I'm not, a Gen Z. That's not my target audience. Fair enough. But sometimes it makes sense to kind of be there. Maybe they're buying for their parents. Who knows? And so you need to think about the marketplaces. And then the other thing I was thinking about too is the influencer side of a brand. I think that also gets that social proof and that word of mouth kind of out there into the wild. And then all of a sudden, when your sales manager or your sales reps that are trying to get into the wholesale business, all of a sudden you can leverage a lot of these other things that you're doing well for direct to consumer. And you say, well, just so you know, we have these celebrity endorsers, or these people are doing this, or these influencers are really helping promote the business. So clearly people want to go in store. They clearly would like to go in store. They just can't see it. So they're forced to have to go online. So that's my thought, getting that traction through marketplaces and through influencers.
It's really important. I mean, it's really important. We do a lot with, I like to say, the kind of like people who build a brand for a passion, right? So we do action sports, golf, yoga, resort, fishing, skiing. Like they're doing something, and that is why they are wearing that apparel or using the racket or using the clubs. It's they're not just like, yes, we can handle the kind of like more fashion brands, but that's where we do really well. And yes, they all have some sort of influencer. They have some sort of athlete, they have some sort of, and that helps in wholesale because, again, those buyers that own these brick and mortar shops, they're taking a risk that first time that they're going to stock your product. And that's another thing, coming in with a platform like RepSpark that they know, they've used, they're very comfortable with. It gives them the transparency. You actually have the inventory that you're going to ship the product. They can go online and track their package. So that also helps with that trust, transparency. Like it helps that retail location feel more comfortable to stock you for the first time.
Yeah, I love it. So what are some next steps then? So those brands that are at that sweet spot, they believe they're ready to hire, or they've maybe started dabbling a bit in the wholesale, but they want to get their catalog up on RepSpark. They want to have the opportunity to be able to have others take a look in their vertical of what else is available because this retailer wants to expand their product mix. What do you tell those retailers now? Like what are the next steps as far as RepSpark is concerned?
The retailers or the brand?
The brands themselves. So let's say brands want to get on the network, or they feel that they're at this kind of maturity and revenue band with a sales rep and they're ready to roll.
Yeah, so then you're ready to roll. You reach out, we do an onboarding call. Again, if you have an ERP system, we'll integrate with the ERP. If you're just on Shopify, it's a really quick connection. And then you're out doing business. You can create the digital catalogs, the line sheets. We actually do a lot of promotion for new brands. So we'll get that brand in front of 80,000 retailers. They
Wow.
get to be, and those are
It's amazing.
usually your ideal, that's your ICP, right? Those are your ideal customers that are that are buying your product in those different, again, more of those segments is where we do really well. And those retailers want to buy from brands that are on RepSpark. So we hear that all the time, which is great for us. But for that brand, it makes it really easy to get that quick adoption. They get to be in front of those brands. They have tiles. They can put a catalog out there. And we typically see new brands get 30, 40 leads in the first couple months. And remember, those are not direct to consumer leads. Those are leads that are potentially placing a $5,000, $6,000, $10,000 order eventually. And then it just breaks our heart when the brand doesn't have a process in place to then follow up with those leads. So we try to do a lot of hand holding there too for the newer brands of, by the way, these retailers came in, make sure you follow up with a line sheet, make sure it's not if you build it, they will come. They will come, but you have to also, continue to harvest.
I find that too with sponsorships, even in my media company. It's like I use a separate tool for that. And if I'm not replying back within 12 hours, the tool is nudging me, say, hey, Steve, someone's interested in sponsoring your podcast, just so you know. You better reply back to them, like, hurry up.
Yeah. By the way, this is what it's made for. So, just having those types of processes, and we can help with that. All of our onboarding team are very well versed in wholesale. They understand. We have, hundreds of new brands that are moving direct to consumer. Again, there are some that are too small, and we try to identify that even up front. Hey, come back to us in a year when you have these 5 things. Here's a great checklist. We have all sorts of templates too of here's what a new retailer account should look like, and all of that stuff. So we try to help too. I mean, it just helps to grow the business when there's new brands coming in, and being in wholesale, it just helps all of us as consumers too to walk into a store and see newness. So we're all about
I know,
it.
I love it. A lot of great case studies on here. I'm noticing. I'll put that in the show notes. And then what about the retailers that are listening that are like how do they get involved? How do they become one of the 80,000 that are looking to expand their product mix?
So there's a couple different ways. So when brands join, they can send out an invitation to all their existing retailers. And essentially, the brands can keep that super private, or eventually the retailers kind of end up saying, oh, well, what other brands? And then they just move into the community. And then they can, sort for certain brands that they're looking for, or product categories, or genders, or, whatever, again, they're looking for their shop. So kind of comes that direction. We have a lot through all the trade shows. We have a lot of retailers that come into the community that have never shopped any of the brands, and they just have heard about it. So we do a lot of work educating the retailers on B2B, educating the retailers that this is here to stay. It's actually going to help you. It's not more work. And so we get, I don't know, we get probably 10 retailers a day, if not more, that are coming in and joining the community on their own just because they heard about it, or they're at a trade show and they log into RepSpark, and then we look at them, we make sure they're not someone super random, and then we approve them to be in the community. And then as a brand, you still have the opportunity to let that retailer shop or not. So even if they're just seeing you and your catalog, a lot of brands will put their catalog in with and hide their pricing and things like that, because again, retail wholesale price is different. But then, they can come in, they can get an access request, and that's a new lead that they get to go chase down.
Love it. And then I guess one last question is around, it's kind of an odd question, but about policing these wholesalers now. When you're selling a product to, these retail locations and stuff like that, is there infrastructure built into RepSpark, or is there an education component about saying, hey, maybe it's okay to have this effective retail price. You're allowed to be on sale occasionally at this kind of discount? Because it seems like, I think a lot of, it's different with like direct to consumer, because the brand person kind of takes full control over sales and promotions and these sorts of things. But all of a sudden, you start passing the torch to a retailer. It opens up a can of worms, and the policing of the retail side. And then what if that retailer happens to also have a direct to consumer brand? Is there cannibalization happening there, or are there pricing issues that can happen from, well, we're effective retail, how come you're 40% off right now, and these sorts of things? What's your thought about that, or the education, or the process, or the policing of that once you do start selling to these other retailers?
So the retailers aren't gonna discount, unless they really have to. And a lot of retailers will throw that back on the brand. They'll say, your stuff didn't sell through our store. Now we need a discount. So believe me, they're not just throwing out discounts. And, that's why it's really important to pick really good retailers, visit their locations. That's why I say like actual physical sales reps are really important, even if that buyer is buying through the platform B2B. But just go check out the product, make sure it looks how you want it to look. And that's also why creating assortments and creating kind of perfect orders for those retailers are really important for the brands, because they get to then tell their color story. You don't want a retailer to have a random yellow shirt and then some blue shorts. Like, you want them to have your whole color story together so it merchandises nicely at the store. So that's a big piece of it too. But I mean, I wouldn't really say it's policing. Believe me, the brick and mortar store doesn't want to discount it either. They don't want to discount it.
Yeah, and I guess I think about too is a lot of times even in the affiliate world, they get really paranoid about, hey, like you can't create ads against our brand name because we own that trademark, and we'll do our own ads because we're the brand, and then we're trying to manage that narrative. But a lot of times they don't want a retailer or an affiliate partner to start having paid ads against these trademark names because they feel they don't have any control over that.
Well, it's interesting. So in RepSpark, there's a whole marketing area or a marketing piece of it where the brands can then, or the retailer can go in and get approved assets, logos, branding from the brands that then they can use as well.
Oh, that's perfect.
So that's what typically happens. Or a lot of times the brands will provide that point of sale material. So they'll provide the hang tags and the racks and think about it. Sunglass case, when you're checking out at a store, that sunglass manufacturer actually is providing that point of sale structure or case. And so it does help with the branding and making sure that, they're telling the brand that brand story is being told all the way down now, through your brick and mortar shop or your retailer.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, this has been incredibly eye-opening for me. I always joke on this show, I never get to show it because as you know, I've been mostly audio only for quite a while, but like when I have lots of notes, it shows that it's a good episode. I feel blessed to have the opportunity. It's just life of learning is my mantra. I think every week I get the opportunity, like you, for example, coming on the show, sharing what you're clearly doing extremely well and helping so many retailers, both finding new opportunities and these wholesalers, being able to get them on board. I think it's great. I've learned a ton. Thanks, Meghann, for coming on the show today. I want to wish you continued success. RepSpark.com. All the details will be in the show notes.
Thanks, Steve. It was great.
All right. Have yourself a great afternoon. Well, that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank you personally for being a loyal listener of E-commerce Fastlane. It's my hope that this podcast is offering you a ton of value through growth strategies, tactics, and exclusive insider tips on the best Shopify apps and marketing platforms, all with my personal goal to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company powered by Shopify. Thanks for investing some time today and listening to the show. I'm so proud and excited that you have a growth mindset and are a constant learner. I truly appreciate you and your entrepreneurial journey. Enjoy the rest of the week and keep thriving with Shopify.